So I wanted to give y'all a brief breakdown of like how Night Out for Safety and Liberation started. Started about 8 years ago now. And I will hand it to Angelo to kind of talk more about that.
Yes, definitely. The first night out was a direct response to the murder of Trayvon Martin. And it was a recognition that whether it's law enforcement or people pretending they themselves were law enforcement or neighborhood watches, these processes, these systems separate us and they lead to incredible harm for Black and Brown communities. And it's just a recognition that that idea of he will protect us is a lie and it's an illusion that's used to propagate these systems. And that when we ask who keeps us safe, the true answer to that is we keep us safe. Can you take us to the next slide? So what is National Night Out? That's the original program put forward by law enforcement. This is when they go with their mini ponies and their ice cream and balloons and they play nice with Black and brown kids for an afternoon. But then the very next day, they go back to the same habits of dehumanization, criminalization, and harassment. So we offer counter programming. Rather than National Night Out, we're Night Out for Safety and Liberation. It's a more fuller, intentional, and thoughtful dialogue and discussion that we've now been trying to facilitate, really trying to redefine what public safety is and what tools and resources actually keep us and our communities safe. We all understand that the safest communities, they're not the ones with the most police. They're the ones with resources and connection. They're the ones where if your neighbor is playing their music a little bit too loudly, you can ask them to turn it down without involving someone that could potentially escalate it into a lethal situation. So prior to COVID, this would look like us filling a park with free food and backpacks and community-based resources and organizations tabling and salsa dancing. Since COVID, we've had to evolve. We took the mutual aid component from this once a year event and made the mutual aid component quarterly, just understanding how much of an increase in need there's been. And just a quick shout out to Art and Donna, who recently got approved for a grant for 500 more books for us to provide at our next mutual aid event. Thank you for going above and beyond and showing how much these events are exactly what we can imagine and what we want to make and create for our communities. So yeah, the whole point of this work is to like bring people together and set a positive vision rooted in joy and love and connection for what keeps us safe, and allowing people to build those connections so that in time of conflict, they can fall back on those pre-existing relationships. I'll now hand it over to Ashley.
Thank you, Angelo. And yeah, as Angelo mentioned, the Ella Baker Center kind of started incorporating, you know, this mutual aid component at different events throughout the year, but especially on Night Out for Safety and Liberation. We started in 2020, kind of responding to the pandemic and providing for the need that our communities had, which we know was, you know, very prevalent throughout the country. So we incorporated like the mutual aid component, but also just really encompassing and creating spaces for us to keep each other safe. And the way we tried to connect with people virtually during the pandemic and even last year is most people hosted events. Most people hosted hybrid events where they were in person and virtually. And some folks also had in-person events where they were, you know, kind of like drive through and grab resources, get information, get free food. So there were a lot of different opportunities for people to really get unique in how they planned events last year. And we had like 42 different organizations and neighborhoods that hosted Night Out for Safety and Liberation last year. And each year, this number has continued to grow with people being interested in bringing this to their communities. And last year, we even had folks that were new to Night Out for Safety and Liberation, just hosting, you know, a barbecue or block parties in their neighborhood to talk with their neighbors and young people about like how they can create safety together without relying on police. This is one example of like a virtual component that we did in 2020. And also last year we did a kind of a roundtable discussion that was kind of virtual as well, talking to different folks throughout the country. Texas Advocates for Justice was one organization, and Solidarity Research Center is another that was in Los Angeles. And they actually hosted an event that provided a food pantry to give out free food and groceries to folks. They had speakers, performers, and a lot of different community resources. So throughout the country, there's so many different ways that people have hosted events, and you can do the same for in your own community, your own event that you're planning to host. There's different ways that you can like have information for young people or coloring, different opportunities for young people to engage, and also have performances. So there's a lot of different options. And yeah, I think if folks have questions on that, definitely drop them in the chat, and we'll have space later to answer more questions about that as well. And then I'll just pass it to Norma, who I think will, back to Angelo to talk about how you can sign up and the support you can get for hosting an event.
Yeah, we're really excited to be able to provide a minimum of $500 support for folks' events, and potentially even more than that, depending on the size and scope of the event. Now, there is some information we need. Where's your event located? What people, organizations are involved? What physical address can we mail the swag to? And I'll be helping people draft MOUs, memorandums of understanding. And we'll also need a W-9 for tax purposes and an invoice. But we've already prepared a template invoice, so that shouldn't be a problem. And hopefully everyone on this call is already registered. If not, I can drop a link in the chat. And also, I would want you to encourage your friends or other organizations that you might be in coalition with to consider doing the same. We really want to have as many organizations as possible have access to these resources so that they can really push the dialogue into all of these different places where it's just so necessary and needed right now. And I'll hand it over to Norma.
Yeah, and you can stay on this for a second, Ashley. Yeah, I do want to share, like, we do work with a lot of different organizations around the country. Events look different based off of the needs of that community, right? You know what's best in your community or what's needed in your community. For some people, it's a block party. For some people, it's mutual aid. For other people, it's just having a dinner at somebody's house. And it doesn't need to be an organization to be able to host an event. So if you're coming as an individual who wants to host something in your neighborhood, you do not need to be an organization to do that. And we do offer support. And as Angelo said, we have these event grants, we have the money, and you're also joining a network of people who can really support. And we have regular meetings where we'll talk through, what are the events, what are people thinking through, what are the resources that we have, what are the advice that we have from other folks who have hosted events in the past. You can go ahead on to it. So as I mentioned, there is more support that we offer than just the stipend. We do have the regular meetings. And so this is a place for us to brainstorm. It's a place for us to support each other, lift up each other's events, and also talk through, specifically with COVID, it was a lot of like, okay, how do we do this and still keep things safe? How are we able to navigate the pandemic and different changing situations in our communities? We also offer a social media toolkit. So you will have all of the resources that you need to host your event, including a template flyer, graphics, tweets, Instagram posts, all of that stuff. Ashley does some media training, and so she hosts different workshops with your organization or with different folks. And this is also, we do spokesperson trainings, and this is something you can take beyond NOSL, but really around, you know, how do we talk to the media? How do you talk about this event? How do we frame the narrative for Night Out for Safety and Liberation? How do we frame this work? And artwork, which is one of my favorite parts of NOSL, we commission artists. This year we have 3 artists who are currently incarcerated who have already created some beautiful art for us. And we have a variety of different artists from around the country who use mixed media to create these beautiful posters. And we ship out those posters and stickers to every location. So if you sign up in time, you will receive this artwork to distribute, to share, to have in your community. And finally, as I mentioned, you're building a network with people around the nation who are doing similar work, or who are who we can build power with on a national level. Yeah, so in order to be able to make sure that we can get you a stipend, that we can get you that artwork, that we can get you the support to make sure that, you know, we're able to host these events and that you can have everything before the event time, we do ask for folks to sign up by July 1st so that we can have your address and get that MOU to make sure that you can get all of the resources and all of the stuff in time for your event. And Angelo dropped the link in there. We'll continue to post the link. We'll post it at the end again, but we do want to make sure that you sign up if you are considering having an event. Another part of what we're going to do this year that we started during the pandemic, and we want to have this open for folks who want to engage. This isn't like a mandatory part of signing up to host a Night Out for Safety and Liberation thing, but we do like to have a roundtable discussion around what safety is in our communities and invite people from all around the country, different folks, because we know that that looks different in every community, right? Our needs, kind of like what this current situation is, looks different in every community. And so this is a place for us to come together for a roundtable discussion as a whole group. This is done leading up to Night Out for Safety and Liberation. And Josh, our new communications director, will be bottom line this and hosting this. And so he will communicate with folks who are interested in being a part of that discussion. But really, we're just going to answer some questions, and that will be pre-recorded. And from there, we will share it on the time of Night Out for Safety and Liberation. But if you're interested in being a part of that national dialogue, you can go ahead and email comms@ellabakercenter.org, and we will share more about that once we start having our smaller meetings with people who have registered to host an event.
Thank you, Norma. And I think like we just want to give you all as much information as you need also, but just want to encourage folks again to like sign up if you haven't already, and you're planning to host an event. You can sign up, and we can drop the link in the chat again. And we'll give you more information about what to expect. When we'll, start having the brainstorming meetings with our NOSL network. And it's just, as Norma said, it's a great way to connect with other people, other organizations that are, doing similar work.